So the first day of class, I have a few goals in mind with the students. I think the first one is to make very clear what our course goals are. Okay, and the way that I like to talk about those are in terms of our learning objectives. And I actually feel like each class really has two sets of learning objectives. It has one set that's really content-based. So, what are the content areas that you're planning to learn? But the other side, I kind of think of them more as the learning goals, or the things that are happening underneath the surface that are, in my opinion, just as important, but often just not articulated. So for example, do we want our students to become good at understanding how they learn? If that's an important part, I want to make sure I articulate that to our students. Included in that would be being able to access knowledge and construct it on their own. So I have some very specific to anatomy learning objectives, and then I have some more broad-based, hopefully will help them wherever and whatever they're trying to learn, regardless of content, but are explicit goals of the class. So we spend some time identifying each of those and talking them through and making sure that it's clear to them what those goals are. And then we actually dive in a little bit on one of the non-content-based learning objectives, which is for them to really understand their learning style. I find that even though this is a 300 level class and students have been in many classes, obviously all their lives previous to this, that many of them still they haven't really thought out loud about what their learning style is and how that might be different than others, and how they should use their strengths and access it during the class. And so we talk a little bit about this paradigm called true colors, and really it's a paradigm that can be used in almost any setting. But in this particular case, applied to education, it's really about understanding where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, what stresses you out as a student, and what makes you very comfortable. And we basically put out there on the table in a very transparent way that they may be different than their peers sitting beside them, and they may be different than me. And that my way is not the only way. And I want to be really clear with them about that. But I recognize my limitations perhaps, or I like to think of them more as not limitations, but I understand the context of which I kind of see the world, but they might see it differently. And so it's a chance to invite them to tell me when we're not meeting eye to eye. So it's a chance for them to come to me and say, I know you're not a detail-oriented person. I am, though. So can you help me get started with this external brain project? And actually, that's the reason we usually talk about it, because the external brain project that they'll be working on the rest of the term tends to be much more open than they're used to. I think they're used to more often than not being given very explicit expectations about, don't just get this content collected, but do it this way, precisely with this included. And I like to make sure they're doing it in the style that works for them best. And that's confusing for students up front. So we have to spend some time talking about how, why would I design it that way? Why does that even fit nicely with my personality, but might be uncomfortable for them? And therefore, it gives everyone a nice language, a neutral language for people to come and say, hey, I'm gold, which is a color in this true color scheme, and I know you're not gold, Susan, so I just wanted to let you know I'm feeling stressed, I'd really like to do well, and I'm not sure where to start because it's so open, this assignment, that I don't even know the first step. Can you give me a first step? And I say, sure, here's a first step for you, try this, what do you think about this? And so it just gives us a nice neutral language. So I guess if I think about my, big picture, what are my goals on the first day of class? It's to make sure they understand what the learning objectives are, understand the content ones, understand the more, running underneath the surface all the time objectives about learning, make sure they understand who I am as a person, and make sure they're clear that I get that they're not the same as me, and that we're all unique, and that they're bringing to the table what is best for them and their own learning style, and that the goal is for them to identify it, understand it, and use it to its greatest potential, and then know when it's okay to come and say, okay, now I need help because I'm coming up against a barrier that's too difficult for me to climb on my own. Now we need to work as a team to do it. And so I try to become very personal about who I am and who they are, and our unique, quirks and our differences, and how we then can work together to make sure this is the best learning experience for them.